Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. While these episodes are short, I do hope they provide you with a mighty fresh perspective on our industry, and perhaps fan the flames of a fire to develop the courage to not just parrot what Google tells us, but to conclude something if it's validated based on your own data and your own testing. Welcome to this week's Confessions of an SEO. I'm sitting here with two dogs, my 3-year-old golden retriever and my son's 5-month-old puppy. Once I start this process, I may have to stop because one of them, and I'm not pointing fingers, but one of them has a propensity of leaving little brown love notes on my floor just after she comes inside from being outside. Okay. So I feel like I'm falling a little behind on things. The holidays just over a week ago, they might have had something to do with it, but I think it's maybe also more about what I'm doing. These feelings are coming about from what I'm actually trying to accomplish. Getting a platform ready for market is about as tedious as all the details you have to deal with before closing on a house if you're going to buy it. Let's just say the last time I bought a house was a long time ago. Software as a service does seem to have that sort of X factor feeling to it, that you never know what's around the corner, that you're like, oh, got to take care of that. There are lots of moving parts, and not all of them are as fun as getting a logo design. And again, not complaining, just sharing my experience. Of course, one could also say, I'm not behind, right? That instead, that's a judgment of where I am in comparison to where I think I should be. And obviously, if I should be at that point, I would be at that point. Therefore, by process of elimination, I'm right on time. That does feel a lot better to describe it in that way. Right on time with ease and grace. Nothing takes the time you think it should, right? But let's just say every day I'm getting closer and closer to opening the doors. I kind of like the way things are turning out. Now, longtime listeners, you know how I feel about client SEO. I shared my professional and personal feelings about this in episode 2, way back in season 1. Now, it's weird to think that you and I have been talking now for almost 4 full years. In like 6 weeks, it'll be 4 full years. Next month is the beginning of season 5 for Confessions. But this path is turning out to be more in alignment with efforts that I enjoy doing, even if I haven't done them a lot. But actually, things that help businesses to which I intend to be of service, right? So it's like I'm helping them and I'm having fun. A listener shared with me in the last episode that I didn't use the word rhinoplasty even once. And that brings me back to thinking about some of my currently undone things. Now, I mean to write up the test results related to the Does Helpful Content Read? And yes, I used air bunnies for those purists who like to argue that Google doesn't read in that way. Hint, I know. But it does help people understand, people who are in our business, help them understand what they're up against. I just want an electrician to fix my light switch. I do not wish to argue the science as to whether light at that particular moment is in particles or waves, okay? So I'm also still analyzing the content on a test site that had a fair amount, a lot of content pruned right off the site right before and during the latest update. Now again, for those purists, I'm not writing quality content to rank number 1 for competitive terms. I have deliberately, intentionally, strategically created sites of various sizes with minimally viable content because I want to see what particular content stays in and what does not, and then look at the differences between them. And no, I do not think AI produced content is findable as that thing, as AI produced content by Google's algorithm. That'll be another story. But once I complete that analysis, I will also want to write that up and share it with my crawl or no crawl group. Last week, I talked a little bit about looking forward into 2025. That's a lot of what we do in December, right? Go, well, this was this year. What about next year? Given that we're in the final weeks, what kinds of things do I want to explore? What do I want to get better at in 2025? And I think of skills as a tool set, but it's not just software, right? It's learning how to hold a tool with maybe a way to turn it into a weapon. I'm only interested in being a SERP slayer. One of the things I want to improve in 2025 is my writing about what I'm learning. Now, what made that move up to the front burner is I'm getting some incredible guidance with an editorial team on an article that I'm working on. And it's amazing how skillful they are in sort of slightly adjusting how I'm presenting it to get the full gist of what I'm saying. And they're guiding me on how to package it up for general consumption. Remember, it's general consumption within the SEO industry. And it is different than the test write-ups that I have been doing as a tester for, since 2025. Now, in testing write-up and testing in general, you have to be sure not to only cover, in the test setup, but, when you write it out, how did you account for those factors, if you could, and if you did? And then the write-up also assumes readers are somewhat familiar, not just with general aspects of SEO, but some of the higher aspects of testing. How do we know Google doesn't read our content in the way you and I consume content? What is it that Google results actually, why do they actually include wrong information about things? So in short, you really have to be super high up on understanding of how search engines work and be willing to address the tedious aspects of testing as well as actually coming to your own conclusion, trusting your experience and your eyes and the data to come up with an actual conclusion. Now, things that go through your mind when you're doing that. Is this an accurate interpretation? Was that a clear signal? Or am I seeing it through some sort of bias and making assumptions? Did I really test what I thought I was testing instead of running an accidental keyword density test? But you see, non-testers really don't care a flying flip about that. Mostly they fall into the quick, quote, spare me the birth pains, just give me the baby mantras. And they think the baby is always something that works like a magic bullet to miraculously get your content to page 1, top spot, or it's just not worth anything kind of like approach. It's like Henry VIII, who only cared about a child if it was a boy. Joke's on him. His daughter was one of the best monarchs in English history, despite everything she had to go through. Anyway, taking this back to what we're talking about. I see that there is so much in between ground that can inform and make SEOs better SEOs. For me, there is a sacred nature or a sacred quality to learning. The process itself is ripe with learning. If you learn how to see if Google can read content or not, is it that far a leap to use a similar test to answer the question, Does helpful content read the words in between our optimizations? I guess what I'm trying to say is all of this is best described as the journey itself is about as important as the destinations. Now, I know a lot of you go like, bullshit, it's only the money. I disagree with you because in the long term, yes, you're absolutely right, right? We could learn all these things, but if we don't apply it, if we don't use it, if we don't take the advantage that our testing has given us and use that to our benefit, you're right. But in the short term, you can learn so much that now you've exploded and exponentially the value of what you know into the bottom line of your business. I don't often share this, but way back when, I was very interested in becoming an archivist. I was going to be the first graduate student in the archival program at FSU, Florida State University, and that was under the library sciences. And I think another part of my viewpoint in this is informed through that lens as well. Leaving breadcrumbs, saving the receipts. I mean, these days it's weird, but it's almost like you become a digital pack rat in that it's like all your notes, right? How I want to make sure that if I just dropped over tomorrow, somebody could go back and say, oh, look what she found. I still have my first 2 testing domains from 2015. And I know they say, don't fall in love with domains, but there you are. I save it like an archivist. So I think as I move into 2025, in addition to the Indexzilla indexer software, I'm going to be working on the writing of my analysis and kind of really hone out 2 distinct approaches. One is a tester doing write-ups and providing all those breadcrumbs and the background and giving people the chance to set up their own tests, right? That's part of the purpose of testing is that, once you kind of know, hey, this is a place to dig, you want to give others the information they need because you don't really want somebody just believing you, right? You want them to know they can trust you, that they can set up a very similar test based on all the same things and come up with comparative experiences, assuming, Google doesn't completely flip out and change, right? So that's one part, one path of writing. And then I want to work on kind of sharing people who want to understand how I came to learning and present it in a way that perhaps is more palatable. Perhaps maybe that's not the right word, but in a more meaningful way to their approach, and get something that they can use in their SEO after reading it. And then if there are those who are reading those sort of, I guess I'm going to use Air Bunny's lighter pieces, they're going to have the test write-ups as a follow-up. So I'll save all the nitty-gritty in that and then utilize a different style of writing for the other. I think that would be pretty fun. I'll let you know how it goes. Well, that's it for me this week. Thank you for being a listener. Remember, we only have 3 more weeks of season 4. And next, actually, I think we are going to have a New Year's Eve edition. Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar. 31st is a Tuesday. So I'll see you for a few more times this year. Now, if you need help with your site, you're not sure where to dig, text me. My specialty is forensic SEO. I find weaknesses between the sites and the SERPs, and I strengthen the sites so they have more success in there. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. I also heard from a listener who shared their testing project, and it brought great happiness to me to see these things starting to take root. So if you have questions or topic ideas or just want to share some of your testing, I would love to hear from you. You can text Confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.